Hey everyone, this is Chris McDonald, and today we're going to be talking about the RaceDay check-in app. We still have a lot of people joining right now, so we will wait another 30-45 seconds and then get going. So good afternoon to all of you on the East Coast, and good morning to everybody else. For those of you that have not been on one of these GoToWebinars before, you should have a control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. And on that control panel, you have the ability to ask questions. I have Matt Avery on the back end that will be answering those questions. And if we have enough time when we get to the end, if there are questions that have been asked, then we'll either pause in the middle or we'll wait until the end and go through some of those questions that more than one of you have. So with that being said, still have a number of people joining, but this is being recorded. We will be sending this out. So we'll go ahead and get going. So today's talk is, it has a lot of basics about RaceDay scoring, specifically for participants, and then we will jump into the volunteer check-in side. So the participant check-in is as it sounds. It's for you, your race staff, or your volunteers to check in athletes as they come, so that you can give them their bib, their giveaway item, things like that, and track who's been there. The volunteer check-in is for maybe your volunteer coordinator or one of your staff members who is noting what volunteers are there. Now, when we get to that portion of the volunteer side, I do want to point out we're not going to be talking about how to set up volunteers in RunSignup. We're only going to be talking about the check-in app and how it applies to the volunteer side of things. So if you do have additional questions on volunteer setup, feel free to reach out to info@runsignup.com or to your account manager. So today we're going to be going through an intro to the check-in app, very basic overview, how to get it set up, a deeper dive into the check-in app specifically for participant check-in. And we're also going to go through a number of upcoming features. And those features that we're going to talk about are coming out within the next week or two. Some benefits of using the check-in app. Then we're going to go through volunteer check-in. And if we have time, we will go through any questions that you might have. So what is the check-in app and why should I change what I'm doing right now? So athletes expect everything done instantaneously, and they're waiting later and later to register. Most of you race directors are seeing this. If you've not yet held an event post-COVID or post-lockdown, I guess I should say, your numbers might seem low initially, but most events are hitting their 2019 numbers, and they're hitting those numbers in the last week or two. So people are they're waiting longer. They don't mind paying that extra money. They want to see what the weather's like. They want to see if there's going to be any restrictions put back in place. And so you're just getting a lot more late registrations. So the old timeline of the way things went, and for some of you, this timeline might have been, 10 years ago. For others, it might have been, last month. And that's registration opens. There's no noticeable difference of your timeline at this point. If your race is on Saturday, then you might close registration on Wednesday, export your registrations, send them to your timer, or if you are the timer, then you're assigning the bib numbers in a CSV file. Then the timer is importing those participants into timing software, possibly sending you a printable file to apply bib labels to your bibs, and from there you're getting ready to set up packet pickup. Again, we're still like coming into Friday, and then you're managing all those changes in new registration on paper forms. You need a runner to get back and forth from packet pickup to the timing tent to get all that data entered into the system, and then registration has to close so that timing can start. And at this point, everybody's kind of at max stress. Your data's not in the system yet. The timing's about to start. Your race is about to start. Like everything's about to start. And there's a lot of question marks with where you are on the data management side. And then finally, you do hit your moment of zen where all the data is entered. The times are coming through. Results are being pushed up. People are happy at the finish line. You're high-fiving folks. and that's the end of your timeline. But there's a lot of additional stress in between there. So the new timeline, with utilizing a lot of the features built into the CheckIn app and RunSignup, allows you to leave registration open until you feel like closing it. And I say that like kind of as a joke, but kind of not. I mean, we have plenty of events these days that are leaving registration open until like 5 minutes after the race starts, and they're allowing people to come in and register, you know, at 8:05, get their bib and go because it's a chip time start, and maybe you have an open start line. So this allows for you to leave it open, all of your data managed in the RunSignup platform. It allows for all of your finances to be managed there. So you know all of sales tax, everything's being paid. You don't have to worry about any of it. And it makes sure that you're getting all of the data that you need to market to those athletes for next year's event. You can then send a pre-event email with a QR code replacement tag built into that email. So if you're not familiar with that, again, there's plenty of information on RunSignup's learning platform to teach you how to put in replacement tags into your email. If you didn't know that RunSignup has an email platform, again, there's a lot of information on how to shoot emails out of RunSignup. It is free. And so after you've done that QR code replacement tag, you'll turn on the CheckIn app, and then you'll be able to dynamically assign bibs by QR code. Now that means that you will need to talk with your bib manufacturer and ask for a variable field, which usually costs a couple cents more, of a QR code that points at the bib number. You've probably seen it at larger events if you've not done it yourself, or if you've used bibs before, like stock bibs that maybe are road ID or something like that. A lot of times they have either a QR code or a barcode at the bottom that is scannable. That barcode points at the bib number. So you're pulling all these data and changes into RaceDay scoring, hopefully, or your timer is, and then you're pushing results as soon as the first person hits a timing point. So I will say for all of you race directors, if you do want to go this route and utilize all these features, please, please, please talk with your timer in advance. You don't want to hang somebody out to dry. And if you don't have Wi-Fi, or if your timer doesn't have access to the internet out at the timing tent or the timing vehicle, you'll need to know that in advance. So please talk with your timer to make sure that they can do this before just going and implementing everything. So let's go into the setup, specifically for RunSignup. So in RunSignup, you can go into RaceDay Tools, and under RaceDay Tools, there's RaceDay CheckIn. And we're going to be specifically talking about the CheckIn app, not web check-in. Both act in a very, very similar way, and you're able to dynamically assign bibs, things like that, and check people in both scenarios. However, again, today we're going to be talking about the app specifically. So if you go to RaceDay CheckIn, this screen pops up, so you can click on the mobile app. Now, some of you guys might be sending out prepackaged emails, or sorry, not emails, prepackaged virtual bibs or something like that, and you want to be able to check people in. You can actually go in and bulk check people in, anyone that has a bib number assigned. So there are ways of doing that, but again, we're speaking about the app today. So once you click on the mobile app, you will need to download the app from your app store, either Android, Google Play, or iOS App Store. This is what it looks like. And then within RunSignup, you're going to go into the CheckIn app settings. You're going to put your shared password in. This password, let me be very, very clear. You're going to be sharing this password potentially with volunteers. Not necessarily, but you may. Do not make this shared password something that is like your normal RunSignup password. And on top of that, what I would say is make this shared password something that you don't mind other people knowing in the password hint. The reason why I say that is because if you contact your account manager, say, hey, I'm having issues with the CheckIn app, the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to try to get into your CheckIn app. The way they do that is they're going to go to right here, and the password hint, if it's in there, they're going to copy and paste that into the app so that they can help you troubleshoot with whatever questions you might have. So again, use a password hint that is or use a password that you don't mind sharing, and I would suggest making your password hint the actual password. A lot of people will just make it like the race name or some iteration of the race name, 123 exclamation mark or something like that. And then you have your enable disable check-in apps. So this is when the app is available to search for. Now, if you still have the app open, you will, even if it's disabled, you will still be able to get into it, but you will not be able to search for it. So if right now you've downloaded the app while I'm talking, if you missed the part because you were downloading it about having to set all this up, your event will not be in the check-in app until you set all this up. And the enable check-in has to be enabled for the day that you're going to go search for it. So keep that in mind. So now you've got it all set up, or you've got it all downloaded. Your app is actually turned on. So let's talk about setup and use for participants. So this is the process that you're going to go through. You're going to go into your event. You're going to have your shared password. You're going to set that up. And then you're going to go into the race. You're going to find your event. You're going to search for the event. You have your check-in type now. And we'll go through this a little bit more, but you now have the ability to go to participants or volunteers. Now, this does not mean, are you a participant or are you a volunteer? It means, who are you trying to check in? So if you're trying to check in participants, you want to click right here. If you're trying to check in your volunteers for your volunteer coordinator, right here. So once you get in there, you've got your top 3 lines in the top left. You can go in, you have a lot of different things that you can select. You're going to go into settings, you're going to change your settings, and then once your settings are how you want them, you go in, you can start checking people in. So this is a really, really simplified version of what we're going to be talking about today. So again, we're starting in the participant side. So we're going to click participants. So before we even get in, one thing we're going to do once we're into the check-in app, we're going to hit settings. You see how I'm in an iOS device right here. I'm going to hit settings. And when I do my RD check-in, I'm going to go change identifier. I'm going to change it to crisp iPhone. So I hit save, and now you see, boom, my app identifier is crisp iPhone. And we'll get to the reporting side later, but if you identify each individual device, you can then track what device checks in what people. And sometimes you can say, you know, John's device only checked in 2 people all day long. Either A, John wasn't applying himself, or B, maybe we shouldn't put John in the broom closet to check people in. We should put him back out with everybody else. So once you're done with that, you go back to the home screen and you put in your password. You select that you want to check in participants. And so now it drops you into your participants. You go into settings, and now we're going to go through some settings. So if you there's 2 different topics here. Now there's settings and configurations, or there's presets, presets and configurations. So presets are by race in the system. Configurations are a group of presets, and you'll see where that's applied later. So you can have different presets. So you can have a test preset here, you can have default preset, you can do whatever you want to in there. And then once all that's saved and these are applied per event, then you can save that configuration to the cloud, and it can be pulled down to other devices, allowing you to scale more easily. So you're going to click to add a preset. You're going to change your preset name to, in this case, test preset. And for some of you, I don't necessarily need different presets. Well, you might. And the reason being is because let's say you have a 5K and a fun run. And you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to assign bibs to a fun run. I don't care about it. Well, you do, because your fun runners probably get a giveaway item like a t-shirt. And so what happens here is you can set 2 presets. You can have a 5K preset where you require a bib number, and then you can have a fun run preset that you skip the bib number, because maybe every fun runner gets bib number 1 or bib number fun run, something like that. So you can have different presets that you name different things, and you can save those. So there's a whole lot of different things in here, bib number, group bib number. These are group bib numbers mainly for your teams, relays. Requiring a waiver. We'll go through this later, but there's a really slick way. If you've imported people and they haven't signed the waiver, you can get them to sign the waiver on your device and it saves to their athlete profile. Linked registrations, if the family registers together, you search for one of them, it shows you the rest of the 3 or 4. I usually suggest selecting auto show camera on bib assignment, especially if you are using a QR or barcode on your bib to assign that bib number. So a number of things are on here. So again, I usually don't care about showing chip number, payment status. If I had relays, then I would make a separate relay preset. And instead of showing bib number, I'd be showing group bib number and group name. I usually show age and gender, but a lot of times I don't want to show email address, and registration date. Now, for some of you, you might be dictating whether or not someone gets a shirt based on their registration date. And maybe you have it written down on a piece of paper so that all the volunteers remember anybody by February 28th gets a t-shirt. So you would want to show that. You usually want to show your giveaway. This is not necessarily a t-shirt. There's plenty of events that give away other things like mugs or hats or something like that. If you've got a bigger event or you've imported in like a triathlon relay, you might want to show the corrals. Corral name is in there. You can show your membership info, USAT waivers, if they're on teams, or any notes you put in. Or if this is not the actual test add-on, the add-on is called test. So if you sold add-ons, you can show those in there. You can show any other custom question in there, and you can toggle those on and off as needed. You can also allow for information changes like uncheck-ins, clear bibs, event transfers, any of these edits like personal info edits, so where you can change the age, name, stuff like that. Now, I would be cautious about providing these information changes for all your volunteers because if a volunteer wanted to, then now they could potentially go in and edit things that you might not want them to. I usually suggest limiting. I create a whole nother configuration for my staff, and my staff has the ability to do information changes so that if they're at the question answer table or the problem child table, this is where they are able to go in and help those athletes who have issues. And then the advanced options are prevent duplicate bibs. This is so that if you have, say, you can't give out 2 bib numbers. If you have a 5K, 10K, and both have bib number 1, you wouldn't want that selected. Validate bibs means that that bib cannot be used again. So if you end up clearing that bib or that person decides to defer and you've got this selected, then that bib does not go back in the pool of bibs. So I usually suggest doing this if you've got names on the bibs, like you've put first name, last name, or team name or something like that, custom made on the bib, you would want to validate those. And then again, if you're doing a relay, you can use a group name, which is the same as a relay team name, to search for check-in. So again, these are all the different things you can set up for a specific preset. And then once you have those presets, you select which event you want to add. So you can do all this work and end up with 10 presets down here. But if you don't actually apply them to an event, you're not doing anything. So you do have to apply them to an event, and then you can select what visible events you want to show. So this event had 3 real events and a bunch of virtual events. So I didn't want to actually show those virtual athletes because we told them we're going to mail all your stuff out. Don't come to packet pickup. So at that point, there's a few advanced options. You can hide checked-in participants. You have left and right display data, so bib number and check-in status. And then you have the ability to click this button and say upload configuration to the cloud. So this configuration upload to the cloud allows you to save it to the cloud. So I can do all of this work on my phone in the office today. Today's Tuesday. And then when everyone shows up, I'll save this configuration. So I'll hit save. It'll say success, save to the cloud. Okay. And now you can see that green and red thing underneath my favorite configuration. And I can delete that configuration if I want to. So now if another volunteer, or if I have a secondary or tertiary device, I can then turn around, and all I have to do once I log into the device and change the identifier is I go into settings, scroll to the bottom, and I click use my favorite configuration or config. And now all of those presets and that I work so hard on are loaded onto the new device. This allows you to scale at an incredible speed. And I tell this to people and they're like, oh, well, that's nice. You have no clue if you've never used this. When you see a line form and you say, oh man, if I only had one more line, you do. Grab a volunteer that has a smartphone, download the app in 60 seconds, change the identifier, go into my favorite config, and now within 90 to 120 seconds, you have a whole nother line working at packet pickup. Or if your staff already has it downloaded, all they have to do is go into the app, use the configuration, and boom, you're back up and running. So using the CheckIn app, you've got all your configuration set, everything like that. So now you're actually in the CheckIn app. So we're going to use, we're going to search for Clark Kent, or we could hit the camera button if they brought their QR code or their registration confirmation. And so we use the camera and we scan Clark Kent's bib, or not bib, sorry, confirmation email. And so it brings up all of his information. So now we hit the check-in button and we can turn around to the person behind us and say, hey, I need a small t-shirt. And so we hit check-in. Well, we have the setting that a camera auto generates. So the first time ever on the device, you do have to allow it to use your camera. And so now you're looking at my camera. You can see I'm still on my phone right here. I've got my eraser over top of the QR code because this happened so quickly that I'm incapable of scanning this and taking a picture at the same time. So I've covered it up. The moment I moved that eraser out of the way, it scans bib number 1002. So then I hit the assign button and it gives me Clark Kent checked in, assigned bib number 1002. If I go back in, now I see Clark Kent 1002. If you go back over here, Clark Kent does not have a bib number. Now he has bib number 1002 with a check mark. Boom, he's checked in, ready to go. It's as simple as that. Now, for those of you that have been using the CheckIn app, there is a laundry list of upcoming features that will be out in the next week or two. And some of these are absolutely game changers. So some upcoming features, all information, sorry, I've got a couple of things in here that should have been removed. Oops. I'm actually gonna jump in and remove them while we're on here. So I apologize for this. Using this one as my as my copy paste slide. So upcoming features, all information changes rolled into one edit button in the participant screen. So before you would get all of these edit buttons down here, now it's just one, update registration info, registrant info. You have the ability to customize question responses and they'll be viewable and most are editable in the CheckIn app. So again, each one of these separately you can turn off and on, and we support like open fields, things like that. So some editing responses are that need validation are not supported. So the editing of them are not supported. So you can't time validation, URL submission, and custom allowed values that have a validation portion in there. You're not going to be able to edit those. And then internal questions. Anything you have set as an internal question will not display in the CheckIn app. That is because we're assuming that you want that hidden for a very specific reason. And so we don't want to show those within the app. Required fields will be listed in the CheckIn app for updates when you're editing the participant information. So if you imported information in and someone's missing their first name and you have that as a mandatory field, when you go into editing, it'll say required first name, required favorite type of race, free form text, emergency contact, all of that will be mandatory if you have it mandatory within RunSignup. Now, this does not change anything if you're just checking someone in. It's only if you're editing that field. So editable fields will also be displayed in the queued edits section. So all of this will be built in if you have queued edits. And again, as we talked about before on previous things, there's an export function so that if you do have queued edits, for some reason you went offline, you come back online, you need to export this. All of this is exportable by email. Your giveaway will display in the check-in confirmation view. So the beauty here is if you haven't yet told, if you forgot to tell the person behind you, hey, I need a large t-shirt, now it says the bib number, the name, and the giveaway item before you hit save and continue. So you don't have to go back in the participant view to find that. The name will be present on the bib entry page. So you can double check who you're actually looking at. It doesn't say bib number, it says the person's name. For those of you that haven't used this before, this would be in situations where someone has multiple people they're checking in. And to that note, if you are dynamically assigning bibs and someone's getting multiple bibs handed to them, would strongly advise you having like a felt tip marker, whether it be a Sharpie or a felt tip pen, and just doing a quick name written on the back. A lot of times, if you're doing t-shirt giveaway on a different area, you can also write the t-shirt size on there so that when they go down to the t-shirt area, they have their name and their t-shirt size on there. That's so that when they go home, the name is so when they go home, they picked up theirs and their wife's or their husband's. They don't accidentally wear the wrong bib, and you know, Susan doesn't win overall male because she went to the Olympics for the past 3 Olympics. This is a big one for a lot of you that have been doing larger races or have families with juniors, seniors, what have you, but they don't register with those junior, senior suffixes. So here we are now displaying age on the participant lookup screen. So that means if you have 5 John Smiths and they didn't bring their QR code, so you're typing it in, you now you're able to validate by age as to whom is whom. Another upcoming feature is your participant check-in report has has percentages in the check-in report. So before it would just give you the number, but now you have percentages as well. So locking the app for a volunteer saves within the database now, even if the app is closed. So let's see if this video works. So now we're in there, it's locked, they close the app completely, they go back into the race, they try to unlock it, they can't without unlocking it. So now they're going to put in the right PIN number, and when we go into settings, you can see all different settings available. So previously, if a volunteer closed out of the app and went back in, it would reset the locking mechanism so they could get back in and have full access to the settings. So now it's fully locked, which is fantastic. Oh, sorry, I decided to play again. Some other upcoming features are checkbox question responses display in the app. There are improved error messages. So like if you, such as an app password failure or a failure to be online or something like that, there's better messaging. We also support non-binary and null gender in the check-in edit mode, which is fantastic. So on to the benefits of using the check-in app. So it's quick and customizable in just a couple steps. We've talked about that already. You can scale it very, very quickly across multiple devices. It's simple to use. A lot of races are really hesitant because they've never used it before. I would say if you fall into that category, allow for one line of check-in to use the check-in app. And then an hour in, ask the people using it, hey, are you having any issues? And if they are, stop using it. But 99% of the time, everybody else is going to be jealous and want to use the check-in app instead of the thumbing through paper and things like that. The dynamic bib assignment features is great for both manual typing and barcode QR code scanning. It also helps save money because you're not necessarily utilizing every single bib. Or if you're, if you have a 12% no-show rate, you can now utilize those. You could potentially oversell your event if you're capped, because you're going to have a 10% no-show, so that all bib numbers are used. There's great reporting features, both live reports on the app and detailed reports that allow you for next year's volunteer planning. And it fully integrates with both RunSignup and RaceDay scoring, and bi-directionally syncs. So if you're making edits in the app, it'll push up to RunSignup, which is then pulled down into the scoring software that a lot of timers are using. So requiring the waiver, we talked about this briefly, but here you go. Silver Surfer is coming to check in. Their bib is pre-assigned. So they've the race director here decided to pre-assign the bibs. No big deal. They go to check in and they see that the waiver signed is a no. Oh, they must have been imported. Perfect. So as soon as they hit check in, please instruct the participant to sign the waiver using signature below. So they click view waiver. They scroll down and see the waiver. Then they use their finger in the box to sign Silver Surfer and hit agree. So they're signing to agree to the waiver. So there they are, agree, boom, next participant, Silver Surfer is checked in. So now if we go into the test event for this, we can now see Silver Surfer is checked in. They were signed on 4/13/21, the IP address, and you can click in and view the waiver, the actual waiver that the person saw. So this is a great way to manage your imports if you have a number of imports into, or ensuring that you have a waiver signed for those imports. You have benefits of using corral name here. So maybe you have a 5K and a 10K, and the 5K is wave 2, and they're blue bib. You can set up corrals within RunSignup. You can change those corral names into the bib color, and boom, blue bib or yellow swim cap, whatever you want to do. You now can display that to help the volunteer remember this is what they're supposed to be getting. Or if you just want to say corral 1 through 5, no big deal. You can also see that this person had test add-ons and he had 2 purchased of that thing. So again, we talked about the quick reporting under your 3 bars at the top. You go into check-in stats, and now you get total participants and then broken down by event. This is great, in my opinion, for like triathlons or something like that, where how many swimmers are we putting in the water today? Well, it's not 100% accurate, but you have a really good idea of how many people are on course. A lot of times when I'm at events, the lead officer will say, how many people do we have today? You can quickly and easily pull up your phone and say, it looks like we've got 70% checked in, so it looks like we're going to have about 700 on course, which is really fantastic, and it makes you look like a pro in regards to how many people you're going to be managing on the day. Detailed reporting at RunSignup. So a lot of you might have said, well, why do I have to change the device name and all this? Well, you have a big report under your RaceDay tools, and you can see total number of people checked in, but then it also breaks down by day, by device. So if I hover over this and RunSignup, it'll break down how many people that device checked in. Now, if you leave everything as iOS RD check-in, or a lot of times it'll say Android, Android RD check-in. So all of those will be grouped together. So you can see pink is like the biggest thing here. That means that several people probably didn't reassign their device name, which is fine, but now we can't divvy out who checked in whom. But we can start looking at, do we need as many volunteers from 9:25 until whatever, 4 p.m. or 3 p.m.? We probably don't. Well, that means at 3 p.m. we need more volunteers to come in until about 6:45, and then from 6:45 until 8:45 we need less volunteers. So now we can start managing, as race directors, we start managing our resources more effectively for the next year event by looking at these reports. It's the same thing that you look at when you say, oh, well, you know, we have a 12% no-show rate, or, you know, last year we had, you know, 400 small t-shirts. The year before that, we needed 400 small t-shirts. Next year, we'll probably need 400 small t-shirts. You start looking at those projections from previous years. So this now becomes a race director and timing tool to project or build an expectation of what's going to happen live on site. So a couple of additional check-in app tools. One are, and this is actually when you go to RaceDay check-in stats, this is where you get into that that report feature, and underneath this view is where those breakdown by device are. But you have the ability to recover bib assignments if you accidentally clear them all out. So this download bib assignments from check-ins, if at any point things have been pushed up to RunSignup, this will be in there. The other thing you have is you have queued edits, and you can retry the failed edits, and there's an export function now too. So now we're going to go on to the volunteer check-in side of things. This is a lot shorter, and then we'll go into questions. But real quick, what's covered on this? We've done one of these talks before. We're going to go into setup of check-in app, the use of the check-in app, and the volunteer check-in app reporting. The reason why we said we've done this before is because a lot of people had questions about just generally how to set up volunteers on RunSignup. We're not going to be covering that today. If you have questions about that, you can reach out to info@ or your account manager, or you can go into the learning tab. If you go to runsignup.com, click learning at the top. There's a lot of information there about how to set things up. So setup and use. So in this case, we're going to be going into check-in type volunteers. Now, if you're already in the athlete check-in or the participant check-in, can you switch from volunteer to participant? Absolutely. You just click on switch modes, and it takes you from one to the other. There's only 2 modes. So if you're in one, it'll take you to the other, and vice versa. Just keep that in mind. And if you don't have volunteer set up, nobody's going to be on the volunteer side. So don't get super excited if you haven't set anything up on the RunSignup side. So same kind of thing. You're going to have to enable the app. You're going to find your event. You're going to click on volunteers. You're going to go into settings. Now this looks slightly different, but you have your presets and your configurations. So you can select the configuration, and once you've selected the configuration, it will say which configuration is selected there. And you can see we have the test dad and big spender, and they're both here for t-shirt handout. So when you go into settings, it drops you right here, and you can create presets. You can show the last name, email, and task. And once you save that, you're good to go. And then configurations, once you get into the configuration, you can select which task is going to get which preset. So we obviously have 2 presets here, ABC 1, 2, 3, and test. So shirt handout's going to get the ABC 1, 2, 3. Aid station is going to have the test preset. And we're going to show all in this specific example, we're going to show all of this for this configuration. So again, configuration is a group of presets. So we've went ahead and made all the presets, then we assign those presets to specific volunteer tasks, and then set which tasks are visible and save the configuration. So now we have 2 configurations, and we're going to select, we're going to hit which configuration we want, and we're going to select that configuration. And then it'll tell you, right now we're using on this device, crisp configuration. I'm super, super creative with my configuration names. So what does that mean? Well, it means that in this scenario, you can have email for some or not for others. So again, you can select what is visible and what is not. So in this case, both these folks are checked in. Once you check somebody in, it tells you that this person is checked in, so you can go back to the volunteer list. You can also uncheck the person in. Volunteer reporting. So if you hit report under volunteers, report, you have 2 options, summary and report. So this is the summary. Again, this is just what you're looking at. We're focused specifically on the number of check-ins. I checked some of these people in multiple times, which is why the number is greater than the number of volunteers. But you can see that, we've checked these people in, and that is listed in our report summary at the RunSignup level. You can also download this as a CSV. But if you're wanting more information on how to get to here and set all this up, again, that's under your dashboard and then volunteers. Your reporting report. You can also go and you can show question responses and volunteer waivers. You can search for people here, but you see both of these people in here, what their task is, the time slot, assignment date, and whether or not they were checked in. So an upcoming feature for volunteer check-in is volunteer question responses will display in the volunteer check-in mode, which is going to be really helpful for those people that have a large volunteer group that they need a volunteer coordinator to manage. So that was a whole lot of information. So with that being said, I'm sure we've had some questions. Matt, I don't know if you have anything that we should cover specifically.
No, I don't think so. There were a few questions just about the check-in password and why we require it to be complex.
Yep.
And we make sure that you have a password that has uppercase and lowercase and another character. And just the reason we do that is because we, as a software company, have to make sure that it's very, very, very difficult for someone to access personally identifiable information like name and date of birth. If someone were to figure out and crack your password and have access to all this data, they could exploit that and sell it or something. So we do have to make sure this is a secure password. So that's why it has to be complicated, because it could potentially end up in someone's hands that you don't intend it to.
Perfect. I'm kind of scrolling through some of these questions again. Let's see. So checking out, someone asked, when checking out for a time when a volunteer leaves, that's not specifically what it's for in terms of tracking hours. So it's not a clock in, clock out function, but we will make note of that. I honestly believe it probably already is noted, but that's not specifically what it's for. Why would you lock the app? So locking the app, that's a great question. It is a function on, let's see if I can find a slide here that has that specific thing. So the purpose in locking an app is so that other volunteers or your volunteers or staff don't have access to like unlock or put personal information out there. So it limits their ability to do certain things. I think this, lock application right there. So, and that video that I showed was a pretty good demo of exactly what the app does. So when it's locked, you have a 4-digit code that you have to put in to unlock it, and now it being stored in the database. So it gives you the wrong PIN. You just cannot get in. So you can't like display email, display address, things like that. So it allows you as the race director or timer to limit access to personal data that people do not need access to. Let's see. Participants switching races. Someone's asking about participants switching races. That would be an editable field. So all you would do is allow for an event, allow for event changes. Now, keep in mind, if you have a payment situation or something like that where someone needs to pay money to go from like the 5K to the 10K, but they don't need to pay money to go from the 10K to the 5K, that's going to be done on the participant management side of RunSignup. The app is not going to take money. So this is something that you would just use in a situation where it's a one-to-one, a one-to-one scenario where there's no money, changing hands or anything like that. But as you change that event, it does push up to RunSignup and show that, John, if John signed up for the 5K and you switch him to the 10K, he's now going to show up as a 10K at the RunSignup level. Let's see. Can participants do a self check-in at a race and then pick up their number? Jim, I would strongly advise against this. I time a lot of races. I race direct a lot of races, and I've been doing this for a long, long time. And I love my athletes to the moon, and I trust them as far as I can throw my 3/4 ton truck. Can they do it? Absolutely. You could set a self check-in and race number pickup station, but I mean, if you're giving out awards, if you're putting your company name on the line, or if you're a timer and you're validating those times as correct, the likelihood that an athlete makes an error using an application that they've never used before is high. They're not doing this training. You are. And so could you do it? Absolutely. Should you do it? Nope. So I hope that makes sense. And yes, Eva, the changing can be done in the app. And when we say event, we're not changing from the Independence Day 5K to the turkey trot on Thanksgiving. We're talking about changing from the 5K at Independence Day 5K to the Independence Day 10K. So we're not talking about like event to event transfers. We're talking about race to race transfers, depending on how you want to use that terminology. I know it gets confusing sometimes, but we're really talking about, the same race day, or that they, now granted, I guess if you have everything in the same RunSignup event, you could do that. But if you're doing that presently, things are going to get very, very confusing, and it's going to just make race day and your after action finances, things like that, a lot more challenging if you've got 5 event days all in the same RunSignup event. So let's see. Someone asked, it looks like a volunteer check-in requires at least one person per device to check in, similar to participant check-in. Yes. So your volunteer check-in, usually our expectation is that you have a volunteer coordinator in that regard. I mean, volunteer check-in's probably not all that useful if you've got 5 volunteers or 10 volunteers. Volunteer check-in becomes helpful when you have an army of volunteers. And maybe somebody needs to make a decision as to if certain volunteers need to get moved from, like all of your aid station volunteers checked in, and you can see that in the report, but none of your directional volunteers checked in. So maybe it gives you as your it gives you as the race director the ability to say, look, we got to move some of these people. So yeah. Jim asked, how far ahead of a race can configuration be done? So that configuration can be done at any point. Like the only thing that you have to do is, let's see where I had that turn on the event app slide. You have to have, if you want to set your turkey trot up today, you would disable check-in. I'm not looking at a calendar, but let's just say it's like 11:23. I'm probably way off, but we'll just say your Thursday of Thanksgiving is 11:23 this year. So you would disable check-in at 11:23, 2022 at whatever, 4 p.m. You would enable check-in today. Now, you're not telling anybody about this. You don't have volunteers that are going to be using it or anything like that. But the moment these enable, disable are set that is inclusive of today, and your race has been renewed and it's up and it's got people in there, you can go, actually, you don't even have to have people registered yet. You can go in and do all of your configurations. As a race director and a timer, my normal protocol is Monday or Tuesday of event week. That's when I start working on this, because for the most part, packet pickup is on Friday for a Saturday race. Now, there's bigger events that have packet pickup Monday through Friday with a race on Saturday. If it's an event that big, I would be setting up my configurations a month ahead of time. Why? If your race is big enough to warrant 5 days of packet pickup, your race is big enough to warrant you testing things 25 times over, backwards, and every which way to make sure you're not going to have an issue at packet pickup with your configuration settings. And in those scenarios, I would register myself, my dog, my parents, my grandparents, my long distance relatives that maybe still live in Scotland or something like that. And I would be registering all of them for free, checking all of them in, changing things, trying to break my configurations to make sure every single thing works the way I want it to. Someone just asked, we have a race with about 1,000 runners. What's the average advantage using CheckIn app versus our usual way of handling with bib, chip, shirt without check-in? So I think I covered that initially, but I will say that your speed of check-in, because you're not thumbing through bibs or anything like that, you can dynamically assign bibs if you want, which means you no longer have an A through C line. So dynamic bib assignment allows you to have every single line open to every single person. And I'm not sure if everyone understands that. That means that no bibs are assigned in advance. Again, before you do this, you need to talk with your timer to make sure they're cool with it. If your timer's not cool with it or doesn't know anything about dynamic bib assignment, tell them to get up with me, crisp@runsignup.com. We'll gladly walk them through it. Or I'll point them to this specific talk on how to use it. And the reason behind that is, with 1,000 people, you're starting to get to the point where you need more than one line. You might have 5 lines of packet pickup or 8 lines of packet pickup, just because you don't want people to stand in line. Well, let's say my entire family shows up, my grandparents, my children, my cousins, my uncles, everything. Everybody shows up. Well, now you've got a problem, and nobody else is there. So now we go stand in the MCD line, or wherever I find that line, and you've got one line that has 25 people in it and 7 lines with 0 people. So now that 25th person in the back is going to have to wait, 10 minutes for packet pickup when there's 7 other lines of people just twiddling their fingers because my bib is in that box and I'm in the back of that line with the rest of my family. So dynamic bib assignment says any one of those people could go in any one of those lines, and you got 8 lines. So now you've got 3 people per line plus 1 extra. And then you also have the ability to run reports on who checked in when after the fact. In terms of how much training does volunteer need, I mean, if you've got all your configurations set correctly, things like that, I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 minutes. And my normal suggestion is training the volunteers, get them there 30 minutes ahead of time, make sure everything's already set up for them, and then have a number of fake people that they can check in. Maybe it's your staff members, and each volunteer checks in one of your staffers. That way they're not screwing up anybody else. So it just makes things very, very streamlined, and they've actually put hands on the app to check things in. Larger events are doing a pizza party on Wednesday night or the week before, and everybody's there, and your volunteer check-in quite literally might be, you might have a volunteer check-in for check-in training. And so, it's just a matter of how you want to use all these tools to your advantage. Let's see. So somebody asked about, I'm confused about the bib pickup at check-in. Once people are checked in, the entrance still has to go to a table to pick up the bib. No, so The bib pickup is at check-in. So when you check in, you are handing them the bib at that time. So all that happens at the same time, normally. I mean, you could theoretically do it in a different order, but that's not really a normal process. So normally, when you're doing dynamic bib assignment, they don't have a bib number assigned, they're not checked in, they show up. During check-in, they're assigned a bib that is then handed to them, and all of that is saved at the RunSignup level. And so if we go back to, what was it, Clark Kent, I think? Let me find that slide. Sorry, I don't remember where it was. Oh, right here. Boom. So Clark Kent is in there. He walks up to the table. He says, "Hey, I'm Clark Kent." He shows his ID. We search for him, search his name, or we use the camera to scan his registration confirmation. We've got all of his information now. See how he's not checked in and he doesn't have a bib number assigned. But we do have a QR code right there. So we hit check in, scan that QR code, or if you don't have QR codes, you can still manually type the bib number in. All this is an auto type to put in the text. And so once it's in there, you hit assign. Now Clark Kent is checked in. So if we go back into Clark Kent, it's going to say checked in, yes, and bib number 1002. See, he's checked in, yes, bib number 1002. Shortly thereafter, if you go into RunSignup, it may take like 30, 45 seconds. If you go into RunSignup, there will be a column that says bib, and Clark Kent will have bib number 1002 in the system. So let's see, any other questions? If you do packet pickup ahead of the race using this app, the statistics assume those people have a, yeah, so the stats on the phone are just total stats, not broken down by date. So sorry, I'm trying to get out of this so I can go back down to the stats. So if you go to here, this is not broken down by date. This is within the app itself. But after the fact, you have the ability to go into RunSignup, or at any time, honestly. It's just rarely are people walking around with their laptop. You can go in and look at breakdowns of how many people checked in over time. So this is a specific date. This event had, I think, 4 or 5 days of check-in, and this was one of those days. So yeah. Do you provide bibs with QR codes already printed out? Yeah. Most bibs, if you're doing custom bibs, don't have bib or barcode or QR codes printed on them. You need to ask for that, whomever your bib manufacturer is. So, or if you're just ordering stock bibs from fill in the blank place, they probably have stock bibs with QR or barcodes on them. And most of those providers will know exactly what it's for. It'll point directly at the bib number. So if you were to just randomly scan the QR code with a QR code scanner on that bib that I showed you for Clark Kent, it would quite literally type in 1002. That's what that QR code means. Let's see, anything else? So bib numbers are assigned at packet pick. They can be, Mimi. So not necessarily. So again, in the Clark Kent instance, in this instance, he did not have a bib number assigned. So we assigned him a bib number at packet pickup. So there's a ton of different ways to assign bib numbers, and we've done several talks on that are recorded on our YouTube channel. But for Silver Surfer, remember Silver Surfer, he's not checked in, right? Checked in, no, but he already has a bib number assigned. So his bib number was assigned in RunSignup. And so in this scenario, all you need to do is hit check in, and of course, this person needed to sign the waiver. But if he didn't need to sign the waiver, it would just go straight to confirmed, checked in. Now, you might say, what does that help me? Well, you probably, if you've not been doing this, using the app, you probably have a piece of paper or 20 pieces of paper that you're now thumbing through, and you had to put everybody in, alphabetical order and all that stuff. Well, you don't have to do that here. You can quite literally just look it up on the app. It's a dynamic sort. Now, if you're pre-assigning, it'll probably help you if it is still divvied up in those A through C or whatever, so people know what line to get into. But if you're not pre-assigning, you're doing dynamic, they can go to any line. Hope that answers that question. So there's a lot of really good questions on here. So I think we've gotten to the end of all of them. Yeah, I'm going through. Let's see. Yep, it looks like we've. Jim wants to know if we have a 110 plus category for Silver Surfer. Yeah, I think he's like 1,000 years old. I know I put 111. I'm not brushed up on all my comic books, but yeah, you would need a definitely. I guess if you had a 60 and over category, he would theoretically fall into that. So, all right. Well, thank you guys so much for being on and staying on. We still have almost everybody on listening to the Q&A section. And again, I just like to point out, if you are doing this and you are a race director, reach out to your timer about dynamic bib assignment, just because you don't want to pull the trigger on that and say you're doing it if your timer, is uncomfortable with it. If you are a timer and need additional training, this will be recorded. We do have other videos that are recorded that we can get you. And then if you do have additional questions about volunteer setup, question setup, things like that, reach out to info@runsignup.com or to your account manager. And yeah, I appreciate you guys being on, and best of luck with your upcoming events. And look forward to having you on another webinar soon. So take care.